Hi there. In this video, I want to talk about the 10 forms of anger. Most people don't realize it, but there are many different kinds of anger. And understanding not only the kind of anger that you might be experiencing or that you might see somebody else experience is really important in learning how to calm people down. In addition, behind each kind of anger, there are a series of emotions that drive that anger. So if you understand and can see the emotions that are underneath a person's anger or under your own anger, you'll have a much better chance at controlling it. So let's get started. The first kind of anger is what I call anger avoidance. These are people who avoid anger at all costs. Now, they are angry, but they suppress their anger because they've been taught that they have to be nice, that showing anger is not polite, or it's evil, or it's wrong. And the problem is that when they suppress their anger, they do themselves a huge disservice, and ultimately the suppression leads to really serious health problems. The emotions that are associated with anger avoidance include shame, unworthiness, anxiety, and fear. So when you see people who are avoiding anger, these are the emotions underneath. And if you avoid anger yourself, these are the emotions that are probably underneath it and why you're avoiding the anger. We'll talk later on about what we can do about these emotions and how we will use these emotions to calm yourself and other people down. The next kind of anger is called sneaky anger. Well, this is really also known as passive-aggressive anger. These are people who get off on saying yes and doing no. It's a way of controlling themselves and controlling other people by not being directly confrontational, but by not doing what they say they're going to do and frustrating other people around them. It's a very frustrating form of anger. They do this because they're afraid of conflict. They're afraid of confrontation. They're angry, but they don't feel like they have the power or the capacity or the ability to deal with anger in an appropriate way. The kinds of emotions that flow with sneaky anger are feeling powerless, being envious, having jealousy, being fearful, having anxiety. Sometimes there's a deep feeling of vengeance, wanting to harm another person to get even. Feeling unappreciated, feeling unheard. The next kind of anger is paranoid anger. These are people who believe that everybody is out to get them. And typically this is unfounded. It's just a belief they have in their brains that everybody is out to get them, to trip them up, to make them fail, to hurt them. And they become very angry about that. The typical emotions around paranoid anger are greed, envy, jealousy, fear, anxiety, shame, a sense of worthlessness, a sense of betrayal, loneliness. The next kind of anger is sudden anger. This is explosive anger, highly reactive anger. People with this kind of anger are on a hair trigger, and a memory or a person or an event or some kind of environmental cue can set them off in a second, and you really don't know what's going on. They are highly reactive because they have been programmed to be highly reactive, probably from early childhood. The emotions that are associated with sudden anger are impatience, frustration, disrespect, lack of appreciation, feeling unheard, embarrassment, guilt, fear of abandonment, envy, jealousy, fear, anxiety, shame, worthlessness, and betrayal, and loneliness. Sudden anger has the most emotions of all of the different kinds of anger associated with it. And so if you are prone to explosive anger, or you know someone who is prone to explosive anger, think about all of the emotions that are underneath that are driving that anger. That's the key to learning how to be calm, learning how to manage this kind of difficult anger. All right, the next anger is called shame-based anger. This is anger based on shame, humiliation, that sort of thing. People tend to get this way when they have been embarrassed or humiliated. So you will see the emotions around this as frustration lack of appreciation, of course, embarrassment, guilt, fear of abandonment, being left all alone, just general fear, anxiety, shame, worthlessness, and loneliness. Now you're beginning to see that the same emotions tend to come up with every kind of anger, and that's true for every human being. So it's not like you have to learn a long list of emotions to see what's coming with anger. All anger is driven by other emotions that are often under the surface and not felt by the angry person, but they're there. And your job is to recognize it in yourself when you're angry and to recognize it in other people. The next kind of anger is called deliberate or instrumental anger. This is anger that's used to deliberately coerce somebody, to threaten somebody, and even to do violence, to harm somebody physically. Deliberate anger has emotions such as frustration, embarrassment, guilt, fear of abandonment, general fear, anxiety again, our favorites, right? Shame, worthlessness, see how they're all the same, loneliness, and even feeling unsafe. The next kind of anger is called addictive anger. Addictive anger is the kind of anger where people get a rush of getting angry or mad, and usually it's because they have a very flat affect, which means they're emotionally repressed or suppressed, they don't feel any emotion, and the only way they can feel anything is to get so angry that the neurochemical changes in their body actually cause them to feel something inside themselves. And so they look for opportunities to become angry, and they will argue at anything, and they will fight at anything, because that's the only way they can feel anything. The emotions around addictive anger include frustration, fear, anxiety, shame, worthlessness, a sense of not being good enough, and distrust and mistrust of others. The next kind of anger is called habitual anger. Habitual anger is people who are chronically angry. They're just angry all the time. And they never really get out of it. They can't get out of it because they've been programmed into this that they just have no idea of how to live in peace with themselves. The types of emotions that you'll see with habitual anger include frustration, fear, anxiety again, shame, worthlessness, unhappiness, sadness, and loneliness. The next kind of anger is called moral anger. Moral anger or righteous indignation occurs when somebody has a sense of superiority. They think they're better than somebody else. Now, sometimes moral anger can be useful, but where it becomes dysfunctional is when people become righteously indignant at little things. These people tend to be judgmental. They seem to be very dogmatic. It's their way or the highway. They have very rigid belief systems. They tend to look at people who are different than they are as evil. They tend to have belief systems that tell them how to live in the world that give them no flexibility in tolerating differences. And they tend to be very, very angry when any differences are pointed out to them. They don't tolerate criticism very well. People with moral anger tend to have the hidden emotions of frustration, fear, anxiety, disrespect, shame, guilt, embarrassment, worthlessness, unhappiness, and sadness, and loneliness. The last emotion of anger is hate. This is a deep and abiding hatred, a rage at somebody or something. And the person can't let go of the hate. It's all consuming. And they're hateful and angry all of the time. The emotions behind hate include frustration, fear, anxiety, profound loss, disrespect, shame, humiliation, guilt, embarrassment, worthlessness, unhappiness, sadness, grief, and loneliness. All of these emotions are driving this hatred. And the key to helping somebody with hate, or if you have a hatred yourself, is to learn how to identify, recognize, and label these emotions. So what's the fastest way to calm someone down or to calm yourself down when you're angry? Well, there's only one way that really works, and that is to label your own emotions or to label somebody else's emotions. This is called affect labeling. And brain scanning studies have shown that when you label your own emotions, you actually reactivate your prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of your brain, and you inhibit the emotional centers of your brain. And you can literally calm yourself down in seconds when you take the time to identify the emotions that you're experiencing and label them. So you might say something like, if you're feeling a moral anger, you might say, I'm feeling really frustrated. I feel disrespected. I don't feel like I'm being listened to. I don't feel appreciated. I don't feel supported. I feel some embarrassment. I feel a little guilty. I feel alone, abandoned. I don't feel loved. Just saying those things to yourself will actually calm you down. And if you're facing somebody who has some kind of anger, you can say to them, you're feeling fearful, you're scared, you're anxious, you feel some shame, you don't feel appreciated, you feel betrayed and disrespected. And by labeling those underlying emotions, you'll help them calm down their brain and calm the anger away so they can get back to being a thinking normal person. So this is a quick tutorial on the 10 faces of anger. If you'd like to learn more, go to my website, dougnoel.com, and check out my course on developing emotional competency. The link is right here, so check that link out. You will learn how to become self-aware, self-regulate, and develop cognitive and effective empathy. It's life-changing and transformative. So check the course out, and I'll see you next time.